overview of, we're going to cover tonight an overview of the neighborhood program, what your legal duties are, board member roles and responsibilities, and just some really good best practices for neighborhood association boards. So again, put your questions in the chat. We'll have plenty of time at the end for them. And Diane, if there's something that you think is particularly relevant to something on one of these slides, feel free to just jump in and ask the question. Or if anybody sees something that you just want clarification on that, we can do that too. So just zooming way up to the 30,000 foot view, what is the neighborhood program? Well, it's a framework for all Portlanders in every neighborhood to participate in the civic affairs and improve the livability and character of their neighborhoods and the city. This program was established back in 1974. It really grew from a lot of things that were happening in the late 60s in Portland. I know Southeast Uplift was founded because neighbors all around Powell Boulevard united to oppose a partnership between the city of Portland and the state Oregon Department of Transportation were going to construct the Mount Hood Freeway, which would have put a 6-lane freeway in place of Powell Boulevard. And neighbors rallied here, as well as other things happening throughout the city in the 60s and early 70s. And by 1974, the city of Portland recognized that they wanted to have a formal vehicle for the people of Portland to influence the decisions that are being made about their neighborhoods and about their lives. And so the neighborhood program was created at that time, and it was landmark. There wasn't anything that existed before that in the country for that. So it is really a landmark program. The neighborhood program is embedded in Portland City Code 3.96. We will, Diane, if you wouldn't mind, there's a few initial links to some information that I shared with you. Diane's going to drop some links in the chat. I encourage everyone to read that code. It is not long, it is not complicated, but it'll just give you a high-level overview of how this program is literally enshrined in city's code. The neighborhood program is run by the Office of Community and Civic Life, which sits under the city administrator's office in the executive branch under the new charter. And through the program, we have a set of standards or the regulations that all neighborhood associations are required to abide by, as well as district coalitions, which is what Southeast Uplift is, as well as business districts and the Office of City, Community and Civic Life. Those standards outline things that ensure that all of our meetings and the activities that we do are open, they are inclusive, they are transparent and accessible to the community. Since City of Portland shifted in the charter to city council districts, the 4 nonprofit district coalitions align with those boundaries now. We are District 3, Southeast Uplift is. District 4 is all of the west side, plus a few neighborhoods on inner southeast. District 2 is Northeast and North Portland. And then District 1 is East Portland, as you can see there. And there are 94 city recognized neighborhood associations all throughout the city. So what are neighborhood associations? They are formally defined in the city code as autonomous organization formed by people for the purpose of considering and acting on issues that affect the livability and the quality of the neighborhood. So neighborhood associations are literally businesses that are incorporated with the state of Oregon Secretary of State's office. Neighborhood associations and district coalitions are not arms of the city. We are not government organizations. We're independent nonprofits. Most neighborhood associations are not tax exempt. Many are, but most are not, which if you are tax exempt, you're also known as a 501c3 nonprofit. But most neighborhood associations are generally nonprofits that are simply registered with the state of Oregon and are often fiscally sponsored by their district coalition to help them with that C3 status. And we are all governed by the administrative rules. They're also called the ONI standards. ONI stands for the Office of Neighborhood Involvement, which is what Civic Life used to be called before it became Civic Life. So those standards outline things that things such as like what you need to have in your bylaws, what it means to have open meetings, how grievances are processed, things like that. So we will, if Diane hasn't already, she'll be sending the link to the ONI standards. Really encourage folks to look through the section on neighborhood associations so that you see the rules that everyone is required to follow. And what do neighborhood associations do? Well, generally, neighborhood associations build community, foster belonging, and develop leaders. They inform and connect neighbors to decision makers, whether that's at the city or the county level. It could be within a bureau at the city. They improve your neighborhood and the city and work in coalition with others. So there are so many ways that neighborhood associations do their work, and this is just a few of them that we see on the screen right now. So that's things like planning your neighborhood, like getting involved in things like land use planning and transportation planning in your neighborhood, convening the community and decision makers. Many neighborhood association host town halls with city councilors, and they invite the community to come out and have the councilors listen to the community's concerns. Neighborhood association solves problems. So maybe there's a stop sign that's needed in your neighborhood, or neighbors that are having an issue and they need assistance with it. Neighborhood associations are a geographic area where folks within the neighborhood can go to the neighborhood association and have and ask for help in solving community-wide problems. Neighborhood association advocate for the needs of the neighborhood, whatever those might be. Of course, many neighborhood associations host lots and lots of events, things like community picnics, movies in the park, community cleanups, all sorts of things that build community and connect neighbors together. And also form committees. Neighborhood associations often have a land use committee, sometimes a transportation committee. Neighborhood associations can form any committees that they would like to, wherever there's a need. And we tend to say, like, go where there's gravity. If there's interest in your community to do something, that's worth forming a committee around it. And they hold annual elections. So as you all know, congratulations, you've been elected to sit on the board of your neighborhood association. Those elections are annual, and welcome to the group. Here's some of the ways that district coalitions support neighborhood associations. So we provide small grants through the Community Small Grants Program. Those are open to anyone in the district, including neighborhood association. That program for Southeast Uplift opens in the fall. We provide for neighborhood associations that are not tax exempt, that are not 501c3s. We can provide fiscal sponsorship support so that they can do fundraising and get tax deductible donations through Southeast Uplift. We provide training and skill building so that the capacity within the neighborhood associations and the leadership grows and is informed and learns how to do new things. We provide advocacy and support advocacy, such as doing things like budget town halls with city councilors, convening meetings. We also convene committees that are district-wide. We have a land use and transportation committees that many of the neighborhood association land use and or transportation committee members will sit on those. We have a climate justice action committee. We also have a community care and safety committee, and these are open to anyone in the district, and we invite you to join us. Those are available on our website, and we'll see that at the end. We also provide communication funds to neighborhood associations where we give dollars to each of the neighborhood associations within our district. In District 3, there are 19 neighborhoods. And this year and next year, which begins technically in July, each neighborhood association will have $1,000 to spend on your communications with the community so that you're able to promote the work that you're doing and draw people to the activities that you're doing. through capacity building, similar to training and skill building, but sometimes it's more specific or it's less structured within a training, but it may be releasing a toolkit on how to do something like hold a neighborhood-wide yard sale or how to start a mutual aid network. So all of these things help to build the capacity of you and your board so that you could do more things for the community. We are located in the Sunnyside neighborhood at 35th and Southeast Main, just up the street from the Fred Meyers, and we own the building that we're in. We have meeting space. There are other nonprofits that rent offices here, and it's a real civic and community hub. So we hope you can come here sometime and join us for either one of our board meetings or one of the trainings that we provide. We also, each of our staff take time to go to the elections for all of the neighborhood associations in our district and support those elections however needed. Sometimes that's as simple as just counting the votes. We serve as sort of a neutral party in the room. And sometimes it's also help with structuring the ballots and like it's really dependent on whatever the neighborhood needs, but we're available to help with election support. Document management is an important thing. This is required. All neighborhood associations for all of your meetings, your board meetings, you need to maintain meeting minutes, and Southeast Uplift and other district coalitions in other districts serve as the repository for those meeting minutes. It's a requirement under, again, those rules, the ONI standards, that neighborhood associations document their meetings and their decisions. And then we urge folks to put them out there for your community on your website. But as a final repository, those live with Southeast Uplift, as we're required through our contract with the city to maintain them. We also provide insurance for neighborhood associations. We provide both the general liability insurance that covers all of your meetings and all of your events. We also cover directors and officers insurance so that each of you as individuals on your board cannot be sued individually. So it is a protection for a board of directors. And last but not least, we also support reimbursement of state filing fees. The city requires two things through this program is that one, neighborhood associations maintain their nonprofit status. So basically, again, you're registered as a business with the state of Oregon Secretary of State's office. That costs like $20, I believe, to file every year. It's very simple. And then there's what's called a CT-12 form, which is sort of like a tax return, but for the state. But it's very, very simple. Most neighborhood associations do not have much of an income. It's really simple, and we can provide that technical support to help with that. But we reimburse for those fees. It's about $70 combined for both of those a year, and we reimburse neighborhood associations for doing that. That is an essential thing that neighborhood associations must do every year in order to be in good standing to be formally recognized by the city. So here are the state of Oregon requirements, and you may not know, but now that you are on the board of a nonprofit, you actually have some legal duties, some requirements that are expected of anybody on any nonprofit board in the state of Oregon. The first is called the duty of care. And that just means that you're caring for this organization that you're on the board. You are showing up, you're paying attention, you're staying engaged, you're reading the materials, you know what's happening. You are stewarding the organization because you are part of the leadership, you are part of the governance of that organization. The duty of loyalty means you're loyal to that organization and you put the organization's needs above all others, above other organizations. And that means that you avoid conflicts of interest and conflicts of loyalty, which means if you have a commitment to another, or if you're on the board of more than one organization and you have a commitment to that organization, maybe your neighborhood association is deciding something that you think that might not be in line with the other organization you're on the board of, you just don't participate in that vote in order not to have a conflict of loyalty. And then this sounds pretty authoritarian, but it's also the duty of obedience, is basically just it's your responsibility as a board member of your neighborhood association to make sure that your neighborhood association is following all laws, its mission, and your bylaws. Those are very important. So these are all of the things that the city of Portland, I'm sorry, the state of Oregon requires. And I'll pause there. Diane, are there any questions up to this point in the chat that we could answer before we move too far ahead?
I'm answering anything that can just have a quick answer
Okay,
as we're going, but there's some great questions for discussion later.
great. Okay, so here are the legal duties that the city of Portland requires of all neighborhood associations. And these are spelled out again in the ONI standards, the standards, which are the regulations for neighborhood associations. There's also a section for district coalitions, but what we're going to walk through right now is for neighborhood association, is that your membership organizations, membership must be free for always, and that you define a membership as anyone that lives or owns property or has a business in your neighborhood or anything else that your neighborhood association decides and puts in its bylaws. So each neighborhood association does have the opportunity to go beyond that. You can say if someone works in the neighborhood, we want them to have a role, or if they attend school in the neighborhood, or if, like you can go beyond that. This is just the base minimal. It's also important that neighborhood associations there's non-discrimination requirements. Everyone is welcome. This complies with both state and federal law and the city. So just across the board, non-discrimination, you don't want to get yourself into hot water. Bylaws. All neighborhood associations need to have a set of bylaws. Those bylaws, you should, if you have not been provided with a copy of those bylaws as a newly elected member of your neighborhood association board, please ask for that so that you can read the bylaws. Those say things like how many people are needed for quorum? When do you meet? How many people are on your board of director? When do you hold your elections? How do you resolve disputes through the grievance process? Those are all things that you're required to have in your bylaws, but your bylaws may have also some other stuff. And then also there's meeting requirements. For all of the neighborhood association meetings, whether it's your general meeting or your board meeting, you're required to provide advance public notice about them by a week. All meetings must be open to the public, and any decisions that are made by the board must be reflected in the board meeting minutes. And then grievances, which is basically a formal process that's laid out in the ONI standards. And that is a way to resolve violations of bylaws or the standards themselves. So if someone has an issue with the neighborhood association, they could file a grievance against the neighborhood association saying, you violated your bylaws or you violated the city standards, but this grievances are not intended to be between neighbor to neighbor. Again, it's basically your community with the neighborhood association as an organization. So those are the city's legal duties for all neighborhood associations to be recognized formally by the city. So here, now we're going to start to go a little bit smaller into the roles and responsibilities for neighborhood association board members. You're expected to attend your neighborhood meetings, events. Again, that is part of the duty of care. You're showing up, you're participating, you're following what's happening, you know what's going on. You follow and you know your bylaws. If there are any policies that your organization has, you should know them and ask for them, and the law. And the ones that are most important for the law, we already covered, the duty of care, loyalty, and obedience. When at all of your neighborhood association board meetings, you probably have experienced, you adopt the meeting minutes that were from the previous meeting. It's important that you review them. They become the formal archival version of what happened at that meeting. It's very important that those are accurate. And if they're not, your board secretary can update them to make sure that the record does reflect accurate minutes. And also the treasurer should be providing financial reports. So that way everyone is all on the same page, full transparency around the organization's finances. And also, of course, you want to foster inclusion and participation, welcoming people at your events, at your meetings, making people feel really welcome in the space. And it's also a responsibility to recruit new board members. Bring other people in, plan for if you're going to leave. Those are all like really good best practices. And to get involved with your neighborhood association, being on the board is a great leadership role, and it also allows you to make decisions around how the organization is run. But the fun stuff is when you start getting involved in committees and events and really following your passion, because you can make things, amazing things happen in your neighborhood. And you are also then an ambassador for the neighborhood association when you're out in the community. So now we're going to unpack that a little bit more specifically. I know folks had some questions you submitted in the when you registered about these, and these are just high level what some of the specific roles are for the board officers. So the president, the secretary, and the treasurer make up the board officer, and the president of the neighborhood association sets the meeting agenda. They usually are the one that facilitates the meetings. They can call special meetings and they respond to inquiries from the community. The secretary maintains the board roster, which is the list of everyone that's on your board, when their terms expire, what roles they're playing, that sort of thing. They ensure that the meeting notice goes out 7 days before the meeting, again, to ensure that you're complying with the ONI standards and that people have enough time to put it on their calendar and actually get there. So no last minute meetings. They manage the meeting sign-in sheet, which is the way that you ensure that your meeting minutes reflect all the people who were in the room. And I would really highly advise if you don't have a meeting sign-in sheet that includes an opportunity for people that come to your meetings to sign up for your e-newsletter if you put one out. Add a checkbox spot for that, and then that's a way that you could start to build your email list. The secretary also takes and shares the minutes that the board formally approves the next month, and they're also responsible for submitting any changes to the bylaws to both Southeast Uplift if you're in District 3, as well as the city. The city on the city's website has a website that includes a page for every neighborhood association, and on that includes the top leadership in the neighborhood in case people want to get a hold of them, the when your neighborhood association meets, what your bylaws say, and where you meet. And so that information, along with what parks are in your neighborhood, what public works projects are happening in the neighborhood. It's a treasure trove of information. And if you haven't visited your neighborhood page on the city's website, I encourage you to do that. And then last but not least is the treasurer. They're going to be the one that tracks the income and expenses for the neighborhood association. They should regularly be providing a report to the board of directors. If you are not a 501c3, again, a tax exempt neighborhood association, it's typically the treasurer that follows the terms within the fiscal sponsorship contract, which is held by the district coalition office. So Southeast Uplift has about 15 neighborhood associations that we are the fiscal sponsor for, but we have equally that many other community-based organizations that we serve in providing fiscal sponsorship services. And then the treasurer is going to track any in-kind donations. So you do an event and a restaurant donates food or beverage to the event. The value of that can be sent in a letter that gives that restaurant, the value of that in order for as like a tax write-off for them. So those are called in-kind donations. And then typically it's the treasurer that submits that annual CT-12 form, which is your annual state filing, kind of like the mini tax return for nonprofits in Oregon. Okay, so other roles on a neighborhood association board, there's often a land use contact, sometimes also transportation. The land use contact is a really important one. It's very important because this is a key place within land use and transportation that the city is making a lot of decisions that really affect everybody at the neighborhood scale. So the land use contact will be the person on record with the city to receive land use notices in your neighborhood from the city, to respond to those notices on behalf of the neighborhood, to maintain the land use committee within the neighborhood, and to keep the neighborhood and the neighborhood association informed of things happening in land use within your neighborhood. And then another role is to serve on the board of the district coalition, using Southeast Uplift as an example, but we have a seat on our board of directors for a representative from every neighborhood association within the 19 neighborhoods that make up District 3. This is typical for all district coalitions. Some coalitions also have additional seats. So for example, Southeast Uplift has the Hawthorne Boulevard Business Association, as well as the 82nd Ave Business Association. And we also have seats for at-large board members and other community-based organizations such as Black and Beyond the Binary Collective. District coalitions are the person that serves as the liaison, the representative to the district coalition board from your neighborhood association is elected by your neighborhood association board to serve on our board. And that person acts as a liaison between coming to the meetings and learning what's happening at the district level, and then bringing that information back to your neighborhood to keep it informed, letting everybody know what's happening at a district scale, and vice versa, bringing information that you all are doing in your neighborhoods to us, which we then do things like promote it on social media, or in our newsletter. And then sometimes in your bylaws, you may have other roles that are carved out, a communications chair or some other specific committee. Often those things that are required, those should be spelled out in your bylaws. So if you're not sure about that, ask your board president. Okay, before we move on to this section, Diane, any questions to uh, cover there up till now?
Just some more questions, that I think would be great for discussion. What are you asking for clarifying questions right now?
Generally, if there's
Yeah.
anything that we've covered already or that seems like prescient to answer before we move on. So,
No, I think there's a lot for great discussion.
okay. All right. Then I'll just go through the rest of this and then we'll get to that discussion. So, open meetings, these are a hallmark of, a good democracy is open and transparent. It's accessible. People can participate. That is what this program is about. That is really vital to making sure that neighborhood association meetings are open and accessible to the public. So that means that the agenda is published a week in advance. Your meetings are open to the public and the locations themselves are accessible. So that means if you're holding it in a place that only has stairs to enter, that is not accessible. You're putting a barrier up to someone that may have mobility issues being able to get up those stairs. So that's always something to think about when you're deciding where to hold your meetings. It's also very important that any discussion or deliberation among board members towards something that you're going to vote on, you must do that in an open meeting where the public can attend. So if the board has a meeting and then decides to go out and grab a cup of coffee or a beer after, or just hang out, and you start talking about something you might vote on, you have to stop because you're now in violation of open meeting rules. You cannot deliberate in private anything that the board may vote on. So I think there was a question that was submitted around that, but basically all deliberations toward a vote must be held in an open meeting. And that you record your decisions in the minutes. Again, the minutes are the formal record of what happened, what was decided. And it's important that anybody wondering can go back to them. I can't tell you how many times it's been helpful to go back and see, like, when did we decide that? Or when did we approve that? Or what was the budget at that time? There's myriad of questions. You want to make sure that your minutes have just the right amount of detail to be specific, but not too much that it's a tome to get through. And then decisions requiring a vote. Here are some of the things that often come up. Approval of the meeting minutes, elections of board members and officers. If you're going to change your bylaws, that requires a vote of the board. If you're going to send a formal letter of support to an organization doing something that you care about, um, uh, or an endorsement for an issue, those require a board. I will say to the big things here in red is it is absolutely prohibited that neighborhood associations cannot support a candidate running for office. So you can support ideas, but not people. So if it's a ballot initiative or a position that a city bureau is asking for feedback on or is looking for support, you can support those things, but you cannot support any candidate at any level. Um, and then also budgets and approval of expenses. Those are things often set out in your bylaws, or if you have a finance policy, these are things that it requires the board as the governance role to formally vote on those things. And then things like projects and policies, the events that you're going to host and your committees. These are all things that are important for the board to fully have buy-in on these, because you'll get more participation. You'll be able to check in on them more regularly, and everybody stays on the same page about what you're doing. So again, we talked about not deliberating toward a vote outside of public meetings, not supporting candidates for office, and no proxy voting. Basically, that just means that if you're unable to attend the meeting, you cannot send someone else on your behalf to cast your vote. If you're absent, you're written as absent from that meeting, so you cannot send someone in your place. So there's no proxy voting. And some meeting best practices, tips for a successful meeting. Allow time, allow social time and time for public comment. I cannot stress how important it is to have some of that informal time just to get to know your neighbors, to mingle with everybody before you get down to business. Provide signage. If you're hosting a meeting inside somewhere, consider if I was coming to my first meeting, would I know there's a meeting happening inside there? So think about the signage that you want to have so that people know where to go and they can participate. We urge you to designate a greeter for your meetings, someone that's there formally to say, hey, welcome. Here, can you sign in? You could also join our e-newsletter if you sign up there. Just making people feel welcome. We really urge board presidents as you're getting going with your meeting to do introductions, get to know your neighbors. And then also provide an overview of the agenda so that folks that are popping in know what will be talked about that evening. Ground rules, which are super helpful. We also call them community agreements, which are basically like the social contract that everybody has to be neighborly to each other. Some neighborhood associations have them already they've co-created them together. That's things like, one person speaking at a time, not taking up too much space, being respectful, all the good neighborly things. It's really helpful to have those and to share them at the beginning of the meeting, especially if you're going to have any topic on the agenda that is in any way controversial. 100% you want to make sure everyone is aware of the ground rules ahead of time and that you empower everyone in the room to hold everyone accountable to them. That way, it's not up to any one person to let someone know that they're being unneighborly. And also provide time for Q&A. People will always have questions. You want to be a source of information for them. So a good overview and will make sure that you're making room for all of those things. And time your meeting agenda. That way you know how much time, you're being realistic about how much time. And sometimes you have to cut the conversation off because you've got other things to get to. When you time the agenda, that helps you stay on time and that helps you respect everyone's time for coming to the meeting. Provide refreshments if you can. That's often super helpful if someone, oftentimes neighborhood association board meetings are at like 6 or 7 o'clock. This having refreshments makes it a little bit easier for someone that maybe just coming from work and just needs a little pick me up. And if you see someone new that joins your meeting, follow up with them. Ask them why they're there. Find out what is interesting to them, and why they're there, and invite them in to participate in your activities. So your next steps are to really get to know your neighborhood association. Ask for a copy of the bylaws. Make sure that you read the ONI standards so you know what those rules are. Ask if there's any policies. What are all the committees? Maybe you've been going to meetings for a long time and then you decided to join the board and you already know these things, but just really get to know your neighborhood association and what they're up to and the history of it, because folks, anyone that's been there for any length of time has got stories to tell. And then get to know your district coalition. Southeast Uplift has been here since 1968. We are so thrilled to be supporting the 19 neighborhoods in District 3. But if you're in District 1, 2, or 4, get to know your district coalition and the work that they're doing, because it's great to sometimes sort of work in coalition with other neighborhood associations to make something big and powerful happen. And last but not least, we should always remember is to just have fun, right? Like there's meetings and maybe they're not fun, but committees and events truly are the secret sauce of how to have a successful neighborhood association. So have fun and celebrate your successes. And I believe so these are some bookmarks to Portland's neighborhood directory. That is the neighborhood page that I was referencing. The city standards, the ONI standards, and the code. These will be sent out, and I believe Diana's putting these in the chat, but I will also send these in a follow-up email to everybody along with these slides. And now let's do Q&A, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen, but if we need to refer back to any of these slides, then we can go ahead and do that. All right.
You have so many fantastic questions. So I'm going to start. Let's start from the top. And everyone has been so helpful in helping each other and sharing with each other what you all do, which I think is incredible and exactly what neighborhoods are about. So, sorry, I'm just scrolling up and I'm gonna just repeat some of the questions and just give the answer really quick. So Andrew asked, have any other US cities adopted a similar neighborhood program? And the answer is yes. Neighborhood associations are actually international. They exist all over the world, but there are some major cities such as New York City and Chicago who do have neighborhood associations, and there's actually a lot of small towns that have neighborhood associations as well. There was a question about if neighborhood associations are incorporated. Although it is not a requirement on the city's part to be incorporated as a nonprofit, the majority, if not all, of neighborhood associations are now incorporated as a state level or a federal level nonprofit. And then Nancy, we have a question that I thought would be great for you to share about, but the question is neighborhood association work limited to the city and the county? What about state level and federal level representatives? Would that be overstepping to engage with those representatives?
No. Southeast Uplift, for a time, like we often bring State Rep Rob Noce to meetings, and he lives in the Richmond neighborhood, and they often bring him to their meetings. And so, no, absolutely. If there's an interest in a topic, you can invite anyone to your meetings. And it's really, I think the thing is like, think of what, like oftentimes neighborhood associations will, you got to kind of follow the gravity. If there's interest in a particular topic and there's someone that can talk about that topic, they're an elected official or someone that has larger credibility in a particular area, maybe they're an academic or something, bring them and have those conversations. This happens all the time. If you've got a college or a university nearby, think of how they may be able to inform the neighborhood, and there's something that the neighborhood cares about. So, no, it's really just what's going to interest people. So you're not restricted in any way on those things. You just want to appeal to what people are interested in.
And there's a question related to Robert's Rules of Order. Are neighborhood associations required to follow that process, or can it be a more casual process with all actions recorded?
That's usually spelled out in your bylaws. So if you follow Robert's rules, that would be in your bylaws. If you don't, it probably doesn't say anything about them in your bylaws, and it can be more casual. So, um, for all of you, I hope that you have the more casual version because it's a bit some neighborhood associations, and I've seen some district coalitions actually have a parliamentarian in order to stay on top of those Robert rules. So, but yeah, check your bylaws.
Okay, and then we have a question. What constitutes notice of a meeting?
Ah, that's a great question. So it's when you publish somewhere that you're going to have the meeting. So if you do an e-newsletter, you would put it out there. If you have a website, which every neighborhood association should have a website, you want to post that there. It's the time, the date, and the location of the meeting. And if you're hosting it both in person and Zoom, you want to provide the information so that people can attend.
Facebook is
And it
also
needs to be a
adequate.
week and ahead. What's that? Yes, you can do social media too. Yeah. I wouldn't rely only on social media. But if you have multiple channels, like if you have a website and an e-newsletter and your social media, you're gonna hit people at different times of the month, right? So like your social media, people are going to be seeing that right before it happens, and it gives you an opportunity to be like, tonight, it's happening now. Um, but your newsletter probably is on some sort of schedule that gives people more advance notice. It's always good to have that in there. And I think the important thing is to really think of like having a consistent time and date. Like Southeast Uplift Board meets the first Monday of every month, except January and July. And that just keeps it simple. And so when you have that sort of dependable date, time, location, then people know, oh, I know I can show up for that. So I think that's valuable too.
And the next question is, if the agenda for a meeting must be published 7 days in advance, can it be added to within those 7 days?
Yes. Yeah. And again, the board chair controls the agenda. So oftentimes, and again, this sort of depends on how formal, if you're following Robert's rules, but some neighborhood associations at the beginning of the meeting say, here's what's on the agenda tonight. And sometimes they ask for a board vote to approve that agenda, to consent to that agenda, or if there are any other additions to the agenda. Things can always come up last minute, and most board presidents are going to make space for something that is important that comes up. So, but if there is something that you feel that people really should, interested parties in it, should attend that, there should really be made an effort to reach out to those people if there's something really specific.
The next question is, does accessible location include a virtual attendance option?
Yes, it's a great way that people can participate from home without having to leave the house, which often may be someone that doesn't have enough time between wherever they were coming from to get to your meetings, someone that may be a caregiver. That is a really great way to make it accessible, is to have your meetings hybrid where you've got people both in person and on Zoom. Then people have the option of where they need to be.
You have a request to please elaborate on voting discussions outside of meetings.
Yeah, so so a quorum is when you have a certain number a requirement for a certain number of people in the room to vote on something, right? So for your board, it's usually like 50% plus one. So like half of the board plus an additional person. If you have that group, a group of board members out and you're talking about a topic that the board is going to take a position on or will vote on, or maybe it's an email that went out and people start having a discussion amongst the board, you have to stop. That discussion has to be in the public realm because basically then you're having a private discussion that the public isn't party to, and it's important that the public sort of follow the conversation that leads to the decision that the board makes. So that's why it needs to be open. So if you've got enough board members out in public somewhere, that enough board members to make quorum, you should stay away from having a discussion about anything that the board would vote on. If it's an email discussion or something, be the person to step in and say, I think we're starting to deliberate toward a decision and we really need to, remember open meeting rules and have this discussion at the meeting. The whole idea is to have the discussion in daylight. Did that answer the question?
Could I ask a follow-up question if you don't
Sure.
mind? Yeah, so two things. One is that you mentioned quorum. Like, does this rule only apply if you have like a quorum present in whatever situation that is, like an email thread or physically, or like what if there's just, two out of, let's say 15 board members discussing something that they want to bring to the board?
That's different than, yes, that's a great example. So in a situation like that, you're just a few of the board members, and you're talking, oh, we want to bring this to the board to make a decision. So maybe it's this event, and oh, what could that event look like? And you're brainstorming. That's perfectly fine. But if you're like, oh, we've been asked to support, I don't know, um, a development or something in the neighborhood, or I don't know, a recent one like we had a request to support saving the Lloyd Center ice rink. So if that comes up, the board president is like, hey, this is on the agenda, and people start saying, oh, I really like this or I don't like this, and you start to get into that discussion, that's where you're violating it. Because if the board is part of that discussion, that email went to the board, you do technically have quorum within that digital space. If you're just a few people out and you're just sort of kicking around an idea around something and you don't have quorum, it's not an issue. But if you have enough people to effectively be able to make a decision, then that's where it crosses the line.
Got it. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aaron, you have a hand up and you're the one who asked the question.
Yes. There have been some moments to where we will receive letters of support, and in our bylaws, it's that the neighborhood has voted the board members to make decisions on behalf of the Cully neighborhood. And the confusion that I'm seeing is if we're discussing it, we make our board meetings public, and then what if it's just those board members, they're always public or on Zoom, and then if nobody else shows up, we're still following the rules of discussing the topic. And then as a board, we vote to support a letter. And I guess the question is, are we following the right steps of discussing an issue and a letter of support? We're making it public that we're discussing this. Are we following the right procedures?
Yes, and I think the important thing to keep in mind is that when you say that, oh, we are endorsing it, it is we the neighborhood association, which is very different from saying the entire neighborhood supports something. Those are very different things. No neighborhood association represents everybody in their neighborhood, right? Like it is a vehicle. The neighborhood associations are a vehicle where neighbors can come together and co-create projects and events and community things and make decisions together. But And sometimes those decisions are very important and will have consequence for everyone, which is why you want everything to be open and have everybody come in. But it is a different thing to say that the neighborhood association speaks on behalf of the entire neighborhood. So,
And
yeah.
it's usually what we have done, the letters, the protocols that we followed, and the letter. A current one is a neighbor is looking to support the new interstate bridge kind of going up, and it does affect some of the issues of Cully. And as a board, we have voted to support just this letter, and then we put on there as we support this as a board and not Cully, but as a
Yeah.
neighbor association.
That's perfectly, yes, that's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
The next question is about sign-in sheets. Are sign-in sheets public record? Do we need to keep these forever?
The purpose of the sign-in sheet is so that your board secretary in the minutes has a list of everybody that attended the meeting, right? So if your secretary, if you're doing a hybrid meeting, the sign-in sheet is what the secretary will use to record it, so that the minutes will be the record of the formal record of the meeting. But if you're giving people an opportunity to join your e-newsletter, that sign-in sheet may be handed off to whoever sends out your newsletter and adds emails to your email list, right? So there's really a lot of important thing, but yes, I would say you should hang on to them. Neighborhood associations are membership organizations. Again, membership must be free, but by having the list of the people who are attending your meeting and asking them if they consent to be a member of the neighborhood association, that is how you are forming your membership list. So this sort of gets to the previous question of, speaking on behalf of the neighborhood association, not the neighborhood. People aren't automatically a member of your neighborhood association just because they are eligible to be part of it, like by just simply living in the neighborhood. They need to consent to be a member of the neighborhood association. And so the sign-in sheet helps to build that consent, gives them an opportunity to be recognized that they were at the meeting, and then also, uh, allows you to build your email list and to reach more people.
It looks like Ernest has a hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Oops, sorry. Our neighborhood association is just getting going again after a couple years dormant, King neighborhood, and we have hybrid meetings. How do people who join us virtually sign in?
Your secretary should be looking at the names, like you can look around and see the names on the
Yeah.
screen right now. That's how your secretary would do it too, and that's
Oh.
how ours does it.
Okay, thank you.
So just gather them there. And if someone is in there, there's a phone number or something. If the secretary is in person, they should ideally also have a laptop with them and be logged into the Zoom so they can directly chat them and just say like, hey, for the record, I'd love to recognize that you were here. But I would say also like, be careful because there may be people who have personal reasons why they do not want to be identified. Maybe there's a reason they do not want to be on camera. Maybe there's a reason they don't want to use their name. So, we just ask for groups to try to respect that, but to whatever extent you can, list their name as being present for the meeting is good.
And our next question, and a lot of people contributed, so I think it's been mostly resolved, but let's check in with Nancy. So one of the neighborhood associations has 2 meetings each month. One is a board meeting, and the other is the public, like the general meeting is what I would call it. So it says, am I understand we should be doing all the work in just the public meeting? And so someone said, I believe that just means you must allow the public to attend board meetings and make it easy to figure out where the meeting is. And I agree that
Yes, both meetings are public. One is a board meeting, one is, typically called the general meeting. So the board meeting is when the board is doing the business of the board. You're doing policies, governance things, making decisions about finances, like you're running a nonprofit. So you're doing the business of the board. That's the purpose of the board meeting, so you can get all that stuff out of the way. The general meeting is when you really want to, use that by building an agenda that really speaks to the interests of the people in the neighborhood so that you're drawing people in. Both of them need to be open to the public.
Okay, and we had a follow-up question about the sign-in sheets. Karen was wondering if sign-in sheets need to be filed with the minutes. To that, I'll say the district coalition offices in the city do not need that for archival purposes. So it's kind of up to your discretion if you want to hold on to that.
Yeah, so your membership list is not subject to like a public record request, but you are required to maintain a membership list. So you could decide to shred them when they're done. You'd want to do that if people have like, personal information on that, like their email and name. But also you have the meeting minutes, which if that information gets onto your meeting minutes, you then, for all of your minutes that you've collected throughout the year, you have the list of all the people that are on there. It's a little bit, yeah. So, and some neighborhood associations have certain eligibility for being able to vote in the election. So I've seen some neighborhood associations, they say like you have to have attended at least two general meetings within the last year or 6 months or something like that. So if your neighborhood association around elections has any stipulations like that on like who gets to vote in it, you want to really make sure that you've got one source to look at, which is your meeting minutes for who was there, so you can verify that. So that's again another important reason to make sure that you're putting that sign-in sheet out when folks are coming.
Kathy, you have a hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to go back to everyone is eligible to be a member, but they need to provide consent.
Yes.
What does that exactly mean? So I'll just tell you, for our example, like we
Yeah.
don't have a newsletter, so we're not asking people to sign up for a newsletter necessarily. So what does it mean how are they providing consent and what does that mean?
So it means that this is a state law. You can't force anybody to be a member of anything, right?
Right.
Like you can't make that decision for them. So when they sign in, they are saying, I consent to be a member of the neighborhood association. And you just say, like, do you live, work, or whatever the criteria is in your bylaw? Do you live, work, or own property in the neighborhood? And consent to be a member of the neighborhood association, which means that if it's an election, they've got the power to vote in your election. Like that's where it most logistically comes in. But by consenting to be a member of the neighborhood association is basically saying like, yeah, I'm joining this community. And so some people may attend that, uh, maybe they just were interested in the topic, but they don't even live in the neighborhood and they're not eligible. But if you are building a list, if you are determining who's eligible to vote in something, it's important that people self-affirm that they want to be part of the neighborhood association because you can't force them. So you can't say, oh, well, everyone is a member because they live in the neighborhood. That's not legal. People have to opt in to being a member. And member
Okay.
is free. It doesn't have any requirements like
Yeah,
that.
we don't do
Right,
anything with it, so I
right,
guess I
right,
just
right.
don't really
Yeah.
understand. I
Yeah.
understand the voting part, of course, but I don't
Right, right.
understand, I guess, the
Yeah.
rest of it. But okay,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Hi, Lynn, I see your hand.
Yeah, oh, should I be having people sign in at every meeting? One of my board members is like, everyone needs to sign in at every meeting. And it's like, that's Joe. I know that like he's here. So do I need to have people sign up and fill out the sign-in sheet every meeting?
I mean, the bottom line is you want to capture everyone that was there, right? And if it's informal enough where like, oh, it's these 10 people, we all know each other, and you're on top of it, and that's not necessary, that's fine. That's kind of a call that you would want to make. But I will say that if you do that, then there's just something interesting about human behavior that if like people are used to not signing in and they sort of like cruise past that table where you've got the sign-in sheet and then other people come, they will also probably ignore it. And then you could be in a position where you're going around having to ask people. So generally, like I've been on a neighborhood association in Selwood Moreland where they're like, everybody signs in. It's like just the first thing you do. And then they don't have to try to capture like the secretary isn't doing that during the meeting. It's like they can just look at that after and not have to. And then you can go around and greet people instead and welcome people.
Thank you. That is helpful clarifying.
Great.
Nancy, the last question in the chat, and then we can open it up for general discussion is, and this is a great question because I was actually just talking to my colleague about this earlier. How granular do these decisions need to get? For instance, if you are deciding whether or not to buy colored paper to make flyers for a block party, do you need to deliberate that in public and vote on the expense?
The expense, yes, you need to vote on. But the color of the paper, like to the point that that is like a decision that you think everyone needs to buy in on, like maybe you've made a commitment to stick to your brand colors or something. And, like I think like the important thing is like if you're making a decision to formally do something, if you're making a decision to spend money, if you're making a decision to support something, those are the things that you really want to make sure that you capture in the minutes. But if there's, preferences, like things like that, you can say like, we'll work out those certain, like those details, like what size paper, what color paper, on cardstock or regular, those are details that you can, work out.
I would also add to that though. Generally, we recommend that neighborhood association board members develop a budget. So say you develop a block party budget and then you just vote on that budget. So you don't have to get so granular and say, okay, everybody, we need $7 for paper. So that's one way. And then I've also seen groups, and some of them are in this room, that will vote for, hey, we are going to authorize this initiative to spend up to a certain amount. So that's one way to kind of not get so granular with it. And obviously you should, if you're doing a block party or anything, you should be prepared to show a general budget of why you need that money. But you can kind of get away with it by just saying, hey, for a block party, we need $1,000 because we need porta potties and we need this and we need that. And Lynn, I would say there are some people from hand in this room who might want to connect with you to see how you all are doing your block party because they're also designing one.
Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat if anyone wants to email me. I mean, we're pretty new, so we're just this is our second one that we've done. So we're figuring it out.
And I'll share that Southeast Uplift does, we work to also like build peer connections. So we have something called the President's Roundtable, where we invite the presidents or chairs, depending on what you call them, within the 19 neighborhoods in District 3 to come together and do information sharing, collaboration, sharing of literal resources, things like that. We also do that for the board secretaries. So board secretaries can come and share like, these are my pain points. How do you deal with this issue? And you're starting to build a connection with peers that are doing the same thing as you. And then also for treasurers. So for those key officer roles, presidents, treasurers, and secretaries, we do occasional roundtables for those so that you can build relationships with others throughout the district.
Nancy, can I do a quick plug for the District 2 folks?
That's great.
Posted in the chat, but one thing about me is I am studying the neighborhood associations. In particular, I'm trying to help strengthen neighborhood associations in Portland. So I'm doing a series of interviews with neighborhood association board members to understand what motivates folks to do such a niche type of engagement. And right now I'm actively recruiting participants from District 2, aka NECN's boundaries. So I left my contact information in the chat. If you want to be interviewed or if you're willing to help me get the word out about my study, I'd greatly appreciate it, because ultimately it's to give back to you all and give you all a practical guide on how to recruit and retain your board members. In District 3, you're not left out. I've already interviewed a lot of you and I'm happy to continue to interview, but I would really love to talk to some folks in District 2. Thank you.
Great. Well, I'm looking at some of the questions that were submitted online when folks registered, and there's sort of a group of questions that kind of all sort of get around the same thing. I'm just going to read them and then just broadly answer. Is like, how do we be effective, especially when our association is just getting started? How can I make an impact on my community? How can I connect with others in the neighborhood, inspire them to co-create their neighborhood? And I will say, I really do believe that the secret sauce that makes neighborhood associations successful, like we've seen this time and again, are two things. One, committees. That's where you're hosting a committee on something that the people in your neighborhood really care about, and people will come because they care about that thing, that whatever that topic is. And events. Events are a great way to be out there in the community and draw people to you and let them know about what you're doing. And I highly recommend anytime that you are doing an event, be sure to give people, like, let them know what comes next. And I'll give an example. The Brooklyn neighborhood, the Brooklyn Action Corps is the neighborhood association there. And they do really simple things that just bring people together and have a lot of fun and don't take months of planning. But they did, they hosted a Big Lebowski showing at the Aladdin Theater, and they invited everybody to dress up in bowling clothes and show up. And all they had to do was promote it and get up there and say, hey, we're the Brooklyn Action Corps. These are the things that we do. Join our email list and come out and come to a meeting and help build this community with us. Things as simple like that, an event that simple that didn't take months of planning and stuff, are really easy thing that gets the word out about what you're doing and invites people in. And then, things like community cleanups and block parties and all of these things. These are events that are the secret sauce also because it gives the people an opportunity to volunteer and get involved. And I'm sure every one of you had that thing that made you say, I want to volunteer with this organization. You probably didn't wake up and say, I want to be on the board of a nonprofit and follow legal rules for nonprofits and read the ONI standards and city code. You probably are like, I want to change my neighborhood. I want to do good things. I want to connect with community. And committees and events are really the secret sauce that make that happen.
I mean, some of us did do that. Some of us were like that. I had to start the whole thing up myself, so that was me.
Well, that's good because it takes people like that are going to be paying attention to that governance stuff. There was another question that sort of it was how to best use the board's time balancing discussion with taking actions. And I'll say, for a board president, you want to try to have a board president that has facilitation skills because it's a little bit of art and science, right? You should have an agenda where you set a time that you think is a realistic time amount that the board will need to like fully have the conversation in order to make a decision. But sometimes you have to say, we need to move on to the next thing, or, a good facilitator is going to know when to wrap up the discussion and move everybody toward a vote. But I think it's really just, and if there are skill sets that neighborhood association board members need, like facilitation skills or grant writing skills, those sort of things, Southeast Uplift as the district coalition for District 3 neighborhoods, we offer trainings on all of those things. We have a YouTube channel that I will send out after this, along with the slide deck and the links that Diane's been dropping in, but also a link to our YouTube channel. It's a treasure trove of information on facilitation skills and how to do this, how to do that, as well as our website. So We really encourage you to mine that for whatever skills. But if you don't see the thing that you want to learn, the skill that the board needs, we've gone to boards and helped them with doing like strategic visioning and planning. Like the staff here have expertise in a wide range of things. And if we've got the skills, we can come and guide your board on how to do that thing. Or if we're hearing from a number of organizations that we really need a train, like we were hearing last year, a lot of people wanted grant writing training. So we offered that. That's one of the YouTube trainings, but we try to not plan them too far in advance so that we could be responsive to what the need is. So if there's a certain skill or training that your board needs, then let us know and we'll try to be as responsive as we can. All right. Diane, were there questions that were sort of like prompts for broader discussions that folks wanted to have?
No, I'll just turn it over to everyone in the crowd.
Lynn,
I have a question about the president versus chair. So I understand that the president is one of those three roles that's required. And then one of my board members was like, aren't you supposed to be a chair? And I'm confused about that. Like, could they be the same person? Are they always the same person, or could they be different?
that's a great question. President and chair mean the same thing.
Okay.
A few years ago, Southeast Uplift worked with the Center for Nonprofit Law to update our bylaws. And we learned from them, and actually, they're an amazing organization based in Eugene. We learned from their founder that uh, according to like at the state level, they tend to prefer that organizations use the word president because chair often refers to more of like a committee or an advisory group. So at the civic government level, at the municipal level, president is distinct from a chair for that reason, because a chair is typically a committee or an advisory group or something. But your neighborhood association can have a president, it could have a chair, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing.
Okay.
We changed from chair to president to sort of reflect that. And, that was just a choice we made, but it's not required and there's no difference in the responsibilities.
Okay. Do you think I need to update my bylaws to make me be the president?
If you wanted, bylaws are something that you don't want to do too frequently, but it's always a good to like, every once in a while look at them and are these still working for us? Like, for example, we know of a neighborhood association that says they can only remove a board member if someone doesn't show up, right? But they're realizing that's really restrictive. So they may want to change their bylaws and like things like that. When you have something specific, maybe you say, well, geez, we've had so many people show up and want to run for the board, but we've only got 12 seats. Maybe it's time to expand that to 15 seats, right? And that would be in your bylaws. That'd be a reason. So you don't want to open them up too much, but yeah, every once in a while, it's good to look at them and just make sure that they're serving the organization and they're in keeping with the way that things are working.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, a great resource was just dropped in the chat. Check out the Nonprofit Association of Oregon for additional resources on nonprofit management and governance. They also do professional development sessions and quarterly networking engagements. Yes, we love the Nonprofit Association of Oregon, and they have a lot of great resources such as bylaws, templates, board development resources. They've got a lot of good stuff.
Another one too, if you are a 501c3 neighborhood association, highly recommend you have a membership in TechSoup. TechSoup will give you discounted membership to things like MailChimp or Zoom or, QuickBooks or whatever the tools you need. You can get them at like a screaming deal if you have a membership in TechSoup, but you have to be a 501c3 in order to be eligible. So,
Great.
all right. Any final questions before we go? Otherwise, folks can get 8 minutes of their evening back.
You have two hands
Oh, I
up.
see. Razia, I see your hand up.
Okay, so question about finances. So
Yeah.
along with like the grants and some mini funds that we can get from our coalition, what are some best practices or opportunities that we could seek out? Foundation funding, sponsorships always. You talked about in kind, but if we've got bigger projects that we're like, maybe we're not competitive enough for a Metro grant, but maybe we could go to the Miller Foundation or the Ford Family Foundation or um, stretch out in a different way. Do you have any advice on that if we've got long-term projects to work on?
Looking at our fiscal sponsorship manager to jump in with that answer.
Yeah, I think like, so is the question like, is it okay to go for those, or?
Yeah, some projects may be bigger than what's available, kind of the low-hanging fruit of our coalition, or some of the small city opportunities, metro opportunities, but then also some of the metro grants or there's like the clean energy grant, like they can be really competitive that
Uh-huh.
we don't perfectly align, but we need funding to do a lot of our programs or to do some special neighborhood projects.
Yeah. So yeah, you as a neighborhood association, you can go for whatever grants you want. I would say to always just kind of be clear on capacity, because managing a grant can be kind of laborious. I will say, yeah, to dream big. We just had one of our neighborhood associations get an AARP grant to share resources with elderly individuals here in District 3. So if something resonates with you and you have someone who is willing to put in the time, by all means go for it. But I would, first be clear, and I don't know if you're fiscally sponsored or if you're a 501c3, but if you are a 501c3, I would recommend just being very clear on who the committee to implement it would be. But you're well within your those are things you can definitely do. And a lot of our neighborhood associations have success with it.
Thank you.
Diane, do you want to speak a little bit to some of the events you've seen? Some of our fiscally sponsored groups like really have raised a great amount of money by doing like multiple events. And the thing that I've seen work so much is like experimenting with the kind of events that like if you're doing a fundraiser, like maybe a business is going to donate a portion of their proceeds that evening to your organization, then you just need to get someone there to say yes, right? But like sometimes it's like you just gotta throw a bunch of things out there and see what sticks, and before you know it, you're figuring out the things that are working for your organizations. But Diane, you see so many events.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of our neighborhood associations actually just this week, it's very exciting, is getting a gift package from Elvira in order to raffle that off for fundraising. So there's like cool stuff like asking a yoga studio to donate, or we have in District 3, Foxtrot dedicated a drink to one of our neighborhoods and gave $1 per anyone who ordered that drink. The proceeds $1 per drink. We see a lot of like cool like street murals and like block parties, events like that. I would say cleanups are a huge, like if you get like and I don't know everyone's location, but Metro prioritizes some areas. And if you get a Metro grant, so that is small potatoes, right? Like comparatively, it can fund your cleanup, but then we've seen people suggest a donation, like, oh, we suggest that you donate $20 per car full or things like that. So that ends up being a lucrative way to get to get donations. So cleanups like it's a way to turn a small grant into something bigger that you could do other cool stuff with.
Right. So the grant, in that case, the grant would fund the giant bins, the company that comes and takes them away, whatever. If you've got like styrofoam recycling for whoever's going to process that. So that's what the Metro grant funds. But then every car that comes through, you can hand out a flyer that's like, donate online to us or whatever, or make a contribution right away, or take cash contributions, whatever. But those really are really lucrative for neighborhoods that do them. They do them year after year. Some also do neighborhood-wide yard sales where all the participating houses pay like a $25 fee to be listed in the big list of all the houses that are on the map or something. And that is a way to generate funds. So there's lots of really creative ways to raise funds.
Actually, I don't know if if you're available right now, but I would love, like, your plant sale that you just did is incredible. So if you want to type it in the chat or share, I really think that the plant sale that Woodstock just did is great.
I'm sorry, what was the specific question about it?
I just think it's a great model for fundraising, what you all did. So could you just briefly describe what you did for the plant sale?
For the last 22 years, we've been in partnership with Portland Parks and Rec to support the Woodstock Community Center. It kept it from being closed down. The Friends of the Woodstock Community Center is a subcommittee of the Woodstock Neighborhood Association, and we work to build funds to do the essential maintenance of the Woodstock Community Center, which keeps it open. So in the last 22 years, they've been just performing a plant sale. Neighbors and local nurseries donate plants. And then our next door neighbor, Diane Sykes, she's a lawyer. She lets us use her parking lot. And last year we made a little under $9,000. So this year I took over as co-chair and had a big I had a big target on my back on whether or not I was going to be successful. We this year wanted to expand it to make it a bigger community event. So we added a street fair, and it's my first time ever doing a community event permit. And I've got to say that Nancy was a huge help to me in doing that, because that insurance document almost made me cry, brought out my imposter syndrome. But now PBOT's told me, I did a great job and it's going to be so much easier next year. And we're going to expand our street fair. And we expanded, we had a couple artists last year. This year we had over 10 artists, including a blacksmith who did live demos during a street fair. It was incredible. I'm still living off the high from the whole event. We ended up bringing in net profit over $11,300. And I mean, but that's just money. The biggest takeaway from it was what it did for our community. People just have sent me some of the most lovely messages. Artists told me, like they were blown away by the gross profits they made. And one of them, she's able to reset up her website. People didn't know about the community center. We had over 600 people walk in the door and talk to our WNA president, who I made sit at the front desk the whole day. I was like, just sit there and talk to people. And he did. And we got more members. And it's created these huge collaborations now, because I woke up one morning during the planning and went, Woodstock Farmers Market should be one of our street fair vendors. And then I contacted them and they were there, and they're about to start their season. And they've asked us to host the plant sale team to host their community growers booth. And we're going to have one of our street fair vendors who's an urban farmer be there. And, and now we're going to do a winter discovery series called Growing Together at the community center, which is going to bring more people into the community center. It's just like, it keeps stacking and stacking and stacking all of these benefits. Which, Diane, to the question of why do I do this? This is why I do this. Like, just, I found a community that we're all in the same headspace right now about making our community better, making it safer for our kids. I have a little boy, he's 4. I want a community like this. And so as a result of also getting this, I'm sorry, I'm talking, but I'll just end it here. As a result of me getting this street fair permit, there was a lot of no's. I got a lot of no's from the old guard at our association. I understood their change is hard. By getting that street fair permit, there was a lot of people that went, wait, I can do this too. And so Jonathan Buca, who's on the call, he's now running a yard sale, like other neighborhood associations. And we're going to have an aspect of it at the community center for people that, like, we have all these new apartments in our community. They don't have yards. So they're going to be able to have a spot at the yard sale. And now we're going to be doing more events. Like, we want to do a Halloween event now at the community center. So it's just like so much more stuff that's opening up because of this one moment that just really took a lot of courage. But I'm glad I did it. Thank you. Sorry.
Secret sauce in action right there.
That's
All right, Aaron, you're going to close us out with the last question or comment.
Oh, close this out. Oh, that's a lot of pressure. Okay. Well, I'm going to give a plug for Cully Fest. That wasn't the point of my question, but Cully Fest in September, big event. Earlier on, the question was the raffle. Having a raffle, there seems to be, I guess, the gray area of charging for something versus asking for donations. Because we do a raffle at our community gathering, we get a donation, something free. We don't charge anybody. It's been a big hit just to have a $20 gift card to a local business at our community gathering. Where is that window? And been great seeing all these faces and getting to know everything. And this has been great. So inspiration. Love this. Probably every quarter. This would be wonderful to have.
Oh yeah. Diane, do you want to answer the question about the raffle? I think it's similar to, well, I'll let you answer if you have had to navigate this specifically within rules for things like raffles and games of chance, as they're called. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some rules that govern how much of that you can do. I think it'd be extremely rare for a neighborhood association to hit that threshold because it's like in the tens of thousands. Now, I think what the tricky thing is, like, you have to offer a way for people to come in. Like, you can suggest a donation, like, oh, suggest a donation to attend this event. It's $5 to $50 or something. But in essence, I recommend that you find a way to always make it accessible. And so it should be free, but it has this option to donate. But as I always say, just emphasize optional, donation, optional. Don't do any quid pro quo. So don't say, hey, give us this thing and we'll market you. Like, well, you can say in appreciation will get the word out or something. Well, thank you. But you can't say, hey, if you can't say, like, in exchange for you giving me this thing, because then that becomes a business transaction. It gets a little tricky, but just stay as passive as possible. I hope that answered it.
A blunt question regarding that. Can you sell raffle tickets?
For like, if you have like a split the pot situation, like that would be a game of chance, right?
But I mean, if you no, but if let's say you got donated a $20 gift card from a local coffee shop,
Yeah.
can you sell raffle tickets for that?
Well, you could say if you donate $20, a donation gets you one raffle ticket. So just keep emphasize it is donations.
Okay,
That's the primary advice I have with that.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing about donations too. In the fundraising world, in the nonprofit world, if you tell the funds that you raise, you can either raise funds that are restricted in that they are for a very specific purpose, but only if you told the donor it's for a specific purpose. So like if your Kearns Neighborhood Association who was doing a fundraiser in order to put flags throughout the neighborhood for people to recognize, hey, it's the Kearns neighborhood, uh, you know, then anybody that gave to that for that purpose, you have to spend those funds only on that. And those become restricted funds because you need to be true to what the donor intended. But if you just want to raise funds for all the things that you do, you need to be more general about that and say, like, raise funds so we can do things like a community cleanup and movies in the park and block parties and these and this and that and all the things that you do. If you're more general like that, then those are general dollars. You can spend them however you want. But as soon as you say it's for a specific reason, you can only spend it on that thing. And that makes it sometimes a little tricky because then you might end up with like an odd amount that you have a hard time using. So anything else before we go? Let folks know, respect everyone's time. Thank you for being with us on this lovely late spring evening and for all your questions. And keep an eye out in your email for a follow-up that has all the links that we shared and the slide deck.
Take care, everybody.